Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Payal Bhargav from Hyderabad, member of PCOS Society. I welcome you all to this program. It is a CSR initiative by Metropolis in collaboration with PCOS Society of India to create awareness about PCOS. Our today's topic of discussion is how to prevent PCOS from childhood. We have with us Dr. Sandhya Saharan, an eminent consultant and gynecologist from Bombay. Her special interest is endoscopy, infertility, and yoga. She is consultant obstetrician and gynecologist at Jupiter Hospital, Thane, LH Hiranandani Hospital, Kaushalya Medical Foundation, Curare IVF and Birthing Hospital. She has won many awards, like Young Scientist Award in 1994, recipient of H. Desa Silver Jubilee Award 2001, Best Paper in International Congress on Infertility in 2003, Bharat Jyoti and Best Citizens of India Award 2007. Devised nomograms for labor monitoring, Vice President of Thane Obstetrics Society, Rotarian singer and dramatist. She is also a member of PCOS Society of India. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you so much. It's a very kind introduction, Payal, and I welcome all of you on this auspicious day of Kojagiri. We are going to speak on a very important topic, that is preventing PCOS from childhood. Am I audible, Payal?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. So now, why should we speak on this? As we all know, the full form of PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Now, what is this syndrome? It is a multidimensional syndrome which is characterized by a multifollicular appearance in the ovaries. If you go by the definition, by the name, this is what it suggests. But it is basically an endocrine disorder which affects almost 25% of women in our country of the reproductive age group. And a large chunk of these women is also formed by young girls and adolescents. Why should we address this issue? Because we as gynecologists and as healthcare practitioners are facing lots and lots of complications resulting from PCOS in young girls. And if it is not identified or addressed early, then it can have long-term repercussions. If you see the literature worldwide, there is almost an 11 to 15% of incidence which we see in all the countries, Europe and US, and also in third world countries. And the characteristics, now what are the characteristics of this syndrome? It is basically menstrual irregularities. You have not many young girls coming with irregular periods. Either they have periods which are coming very frequently in the first few years after achieving menarche. Menarche is when you achieve the periods for the first time. The first menstrual period can happen anytime between say 11 to 14 years of age. If you do not achieve menarche by the age of 16, we call it primary amenorrhea. And one should always report to the gynecologist in this situation. There are girls who achieve their periods within the time frame, but they have irregular periods for many years following this. And if the irregularity is more than say 45 days, then we say that you wait for a couple of years, because the hypothalamo-pituitary axis, which controls normal cyclical menstruation, takes a time to sort of develop. And the stability of the periods of the menstrual cycle takes almost 2 years after you attain menarche. So we always say, do not worry. Immediately once you start getting your periods, you may not get it monthly. As we say, 28-day cycle is not really possible in young girls. And even later, some girls have a variable cycle. Anything between 22 to 35 days is normal. So do not worry unnecessarily. But what is the characteristics of PCOS? Why should you understand whether you have it? So first is the menstrual irregularities. Later on, when the women get married, and also if they are planning to conceive, they may see that they are not ovulating. We have anovulatory cycles and they have difficulty in conceiving. The second thing is hyperandrogenism. Now, what is hyperandrogenism? Androgens are male hormones. So, as the name suggests, when you have excess of male hormones in your body, then you get features like hirsutism. Now, hirsutism is excess of terminal hair, the coarse terminal hair in the male sexual sites. That is, if you see in girls, if you have excess of hair on the chin, or if you have it on the sideburns, upper body, the chest, or in the abdomen, then it is called hirsutism. There is a way to map hirsutism. There is a score which we use. It is called the Ferryman-Galway score, but we will not go into the details of that. And there is also the presence of acne. Now, there is always a little bit of pimples during the pubertal age. There are a little bit of acne, and there is a what we call it a flare up sometimes we see because of the hormonal issues. But the acne which is of PCOS is different from the normal acne. So this is something which the dermatologist can help you if you feel it is not regressing by the normal care which we advise. The third characteristics is ultrasound diagnosis. Now we always stress that do not just rush into an ultrasound. Ideally by the guidelines. Now there are many guidelines. The Polycystic Society of India, which has given us this opportunity to have this session today, of which we are members, it also formulates guidelines, and they give us the yardstick by which we measure what we should do when. So there is the American Androgen Excess Society, there is the European Society of Reproductive Medicine, and also the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, and endocrinological societies. They come together and they formulate recommendations and guidelines which say that you do not need to undergo an ultrasound within 8 years of achieving menarche. The reason is because the appearance of the ovarian follicles is a little multifollicular in these 8 years. It takes time for the ovaries to develop the kind of the features which we see in adult ovaries. So do not get stressed, that is the bottom line. But these three things are important: menstrual irregularities, hyperandrogenism, this can be biochemical or clinical. That is, biochemical is when we diagnose it by laboratory techniques, and clinical is when we can see the symptoms and see the person and clinically diagnose it. Now, laboratory examinations. Coming to that, what is this biochemical examination? There are some girls or women who have menstrual irregularities, but they may not be obese, and they do not have any overt features of hirsutism or acne, or we call androgenic alopecia, that is hair loss, a little bit of balding, male pattern hair loss. So if they do not have these features and they still have irregular menses, then if they need any diagnosis, then we can do lab tests. Now many laboratories, they have what is called a PCOS profile, in which we do the hormones, FSH, LH, testosterone, prolactin, thyroid hormones, a complete blood profile. But by and large, we do not recommend laboratory tests for PCOS young girls as of now, because the diagnosis is predominantly clinic, and also there is no standardization of the radioimmunoassays. All these tests require a radioimmunoassay. So there is no standardization of these tests in young girls, and we have to use the range and the adult cutoff values. So we do in some cases where it is very indicated, only if the clinician feels, then we do free testosterone or total testosterone, and if necessary in lean girls who are not obese, if we think that they have insulin resistance or if they have any features suggesting, then we may do insulin levels. But all this is subjective. It is as per the discretion of your gynecologists. So we do not say that you go in for a PCOS profile the moment you walk into the consulting room. So everything is a very stepwise pattern. The criteria of diagnosis, the tests, everything is very standardized. Now, why should we know about PCOS? What causes all this? You see so many girls, at least I see at least maybe 2 or 3 girls per day who are having PCOS. It is so rampant, maybe because we are a referral center, but even by and large, we are seeing a lot many girls coming in with these menstrual irregularities, and they come with symptoms or they are slightly overweight. So what happens? The underlying pathophysiology of any disease needs to be understood. In PCOS, the underlying cause is insulin resistance. Now we all know insulin is a hormone which is produced by the pancreas. What happens is when there is an excess of insulin, now this can be because either excess insulin is have testosterone or excess hormones which are in circulation. So what will happen is they form these features, they act on the skin, and they give rise to these features of androgenism. So this is what we need to understand. And why should we be bothered? Now there are 2-3 reasons. Of course, if you are going to look like a hirsute, then definitely young girls, there is a lot of emphasis on looking good. It causes a lot of stress. There is low self-esteem and a lot of peer pressure. So these are the girls who can face a lot of, they get depressed if it is not addressed in time. And also it leads to anxiety in the parents. So this is one thing. And long-term repercussions, if it is not treated in the coronary arteries, causing heart disease later. Even the ovaries, when we say that these hormones, so then there is an excess of conversion of these hormones to estrogen. Now estrogen is the female hormone which is responsible for our cycles, estrogen and progesterone. So if there is an excess estrogenic influence on the uterus, then later on in life she may develop what is called as endometrial cancer. So these are the things which can happen, and also deleterious effects like dyslipidemias and liver disorders if there is excess of fat deposition. So we have to take these things into cognizance. And how do you address them? First of all, once you've understood that you have a problem, if you are obese, now what is obese? We say there is something called as BMI, the body mass index. Now this is the weight in kgs divided by the height in meters squared. So if your BMI is between 25 to 30, you are overweight. Ideal BMI should be within 25. If you see the absolute ideal, it is around 23. If you are above 25, you are overweight. If you are above 30, you are obese. The other thing is the waist to hip ratio. Now that is very important. Now where do you measure? A lot of people measure it at the navel. See, it should be between the last rib and the what we call it the iliac crest. You can feel the iliac crest. So the midpoint of that is where you should measure the waist. It can be measured in inches or centimeters, and the hip is at the outermost part of the buttock. So the waist hip ratio, if you have a waist of 30 inches and a hip of 38 inches, then it is around 0.78. So ideally in girls or in ladies, it should be within 0.8. So if it is more, then definitely you have what is called as abdominal fat, which is the wrong kind of fat. It is called an apple kind of a figure, which is not good because it causes a lot of dyslipidemias later on. So these are the things which we need to do. If you are overweight, then definitely the first thing we say is lifestyle modification. And there are many things which can be done. You should reduce your weight. If your weight is above the optimal level, even if you reduce your caloric intake, you have to see what you are eating. Only if you are eating right, then your weight will be in check. So if you are binging, if you're not eating well, then you have to reduce your weight, bring it to optimal level. That itself goes a long way in reducing all these symptoms and complications of PCOS. Lifestyle modification, we say, comprises of both weight loss, eating right, and sleeping right. So all these things are there. Along with that, this also helps in relieving your symptoms, the menstrual irregularities, ovulation, all these things slowly come into their normal pattern. But you need to see a gynecologist if you feel you're not able to address this on your own. So do not delay, but do not be over anxious also. So this is just a little bit of backdrop that I have given you. Now I will be taking questions. Dr. Payal will be asking me, and also please put in your queries in the chat box and we will answer all your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhya. That was a wonderful insight into PCOS.
Thank you, Dr. Payal.
So usually children are confused about the regularity of their menstrual cycle. What is your advice for them?
Yes, like I mentioned, it takes 1 or 2 years for the pituitary axis. We call it the hypothalamus pituitary axis because it is basically all regulated by the brain. So that takes time to stabilize, and once that happens after 2 years, more or less you achieve a normal menstrual pattern. Now every day everybody cannot have a 28-day cycle. Like I said, some girls have a 22-day cycle, some girls have a 35-day cycle. So anything between this is all right. And if you attain that after 2 years of achieving your menstruation, then it is fine. But if you are not getting menstruation for say 90 days, it is called amenorrhea, then you should consult a gynecologist. Or if you feel you've not achieved your menstruation by the age of 16, then you should see a gynecologist. A little bit of menstrual irregularities is all right. But if you have very heavy menstruation, then you have to be careful because you will land up with anemia if you have frequent and very heavy bleeding.
So besides PCOS, what are the other causes of irregular periods which adolescent girls should know?
See, now when we make a diagnosis of PCOS, it is basically we exclude any other endocrine problems. Now there are many endocrine problems, like we know the thyroid gland is basically, we say it controls all other hormones. So it is very important that the thyroid function is optimal. We see there is a subnormal thyroid stimulation. So we have what is called as hypothyroidism. So we have to rule out hypothyroidism. There is another gland, there is a prolactin which is secreted. So that also needs to be seen whether you are secreting excess of prolactin. So these two have to be excluded. Then there are certain cortisol, there is a Cushing syndrome where you have obesity, where you have excess of cortisol in the body. That needs to be excluded. And adrenal hyperplasia. So these are the things we need to, late onset congenital adrenal hyperplasias can also with 17 hydroxyperoxidase deficiency. So these things have to be excluded. At the same time, in our country, we have two kinds of. We have either the malnourished population where they are not eating well. So definitely there is a less amount of fat cells, less of leptin, decreased insulin, and they have decreased of the hormones, which is causing them amenorrhea. On the other hand, overweight, then there is increased insulin, and then there is, again, we call it PCOS because of overweight. In our country, we should be very careful in also diagnosing tuberculosis. I feel that is something which we miss because worldwide there is not so much of tuberculosis, but the studies generally come from all over the world and they do not emphasize on tuberculosis. Whereas in our country, we have a lot of tuberculosis, so we should not miss that. If there is a lot of amenorrhea or the cycles are very infrequent, please look out for tuberculosis. Nowadays, we see a lot of eating disorders. Girls are eating a lot. Anorexia, bulimia is something which we are seeing in teenagers. Binge eating, vomiting, or not eating because scared to gain weight. These things we have to see. And anemia. Anemia is something which you need to rule out. So you have to rule out endocrine disorders, associated problems, diabetes, other thyroid or prolactin disorders, Cushing syndrome, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, adrenal secreting tumors. These are all very rare things, but by and large, malnourishment, anemias, tuberculosis. These are things which you have to be careful about.
Okay, thank you. So, how do we explain the young girls the importance of knowing and understanding PCOS?
See, knowing PCOS, because what will happen is now they are going to school, they're going to high school, colleges. So I also have a daughter who has gone through these phases, and she would come and say, my cycles are not coming in time, but everybody in my class gets once in 2 months or 3 months. So till they were say around 16 or 17, we also wait. We say, okay, let the cycles optimize. But after that, if this is a continuing phenomenon, then definitely you must see your clinician and a gynecologist, because it should not be taken lightly if the cycles are not coming in time, or maybe, like I said, more than 45-day intervals. We say 4 to 6 cycles a year is all right. That is what is the norm all over the world. At least 4 cycles a year. But we say 6 cycles ideally should come. But if it is not happening, then you see a gynecologist.
So, my next question is quite similar to this. How quickly should a girl consult a doctor when she sees symptoms of PCOS, and why?
That is how quickly
Yeah.
you should do. First of all, you should be informed that this is what is happening, and then you should see what is your situation. If you are overweight, like I said, you calculate your BMI, see your waist tip ratio, and if you are overweight, if you are not eating right, not sleeping well, see stress. Nowadays, what we see is even children who are going to school are always stressed. They don't play outside. They don't have time. See, vitamin D, like, it is a very important factor. Vitamin D is in charge of our calcium metabolism. Calcium homeostasis is very dependent on vitamin D. Nowadays, children are sleeping late, so there is no melanin formation. So what happens is everything is taken in the form of a pill. Vitamin D is something which you can procure by just playing out in the sun. But if you're taking supplements for that, that is a very sorry state of affairs. Calcium, children are not having milk. So if you're not having milk, some people have lactose intolerance, that is different. But if you're not having calcium, maybe not dairy, but you can have it in other forms. You can have it in the form of ragi, nachni, like we call it. Or you can have vegetables, you can have bananas. There are so many calcium containing foods which you should have. So if you're not having all that, there is something wrong with your diet. And if your cycles are not proper, even after taking care of everything, then you should see a gynecologist. But first, see where you're going wrong. So that is my take-home message, that you have to first identify what is right for you, what is wrong for you. And if you're not following the normal, then there is something to worry about. Yes.
Okay. So, is only an ultrasound diagnosis of a patient valid to label her as PCOS patient?
Not at all. See, what happens is, the first thing many girls do nowadays, in some centers, they even do an ultrasound. By and large, ultrasound should be prescribed, or it should be asked for by a practicing clinician or a gynecologist. But sometimes they are very, very apprehensive, and they want a sort of a answer that, no, I want to see if something is wrong. And sometimes even the practitioner feels that, let me rule out any other problem. So if you ask for an ultrasound diagnosis, you see a multifollicular pattern in young girls, which is normal. It is physiological. It is not pathological. So if you label her as a PCOS just based on ultrasound, you are indirectly causing her a lot of stress and anxiety, and it is not going to help in any way. So only ultrasound is definitely not an answer. It is a clinical diagnosis by and large, and if at all, it has to be substantiated with laboratory readings.
Yeah, right. So, if a girl is overweight and has poor lifestyle, but she is still very young, as our topic is PCOS, prevention of PCOS in childhood, what are her chances of getting PCOS?
See, if she is overweight and if she is not following any of this, she has almost a 10 to 15% chance of getting into a PCOS mode. So that is a very high chance, and more than that is she's at a risk of type 2 diabetes. This is something which you have to, because they have glucose intolerance and they'll end up with diabetes, which is again we call it a lifestyle disease, and it is very very distressing, because then the sequelae of diabetes, which we all know, it's very difficult later on in life to sort of manage your sugar levels. Every day it is a struggle. So you should catch it early. Before you go into all these lifestyle diseases, there is a metabolic syndrome, which is a triad of overweight, hypertension, dyslipidemias, and diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So this metabolic syndrome is what we are seeing very often in girls nowadays, especially those who are overweight, who have a BMI of more than 30. So I would say you have to be extremely careful, and you should take care of it and nip it in the bud. See, our calcium banks are there till we are adults. So we are in the process of still storing our calcium. So make the utmost use of it. Keep your calcium channels on. See that the calcium absorption is good by having good vitamin D. Have a good healthy lifestyle and a balanced diet. That is very important.
So the next question of mine was, what role does a healthy diet and regular consistent exercise plays in PCOS? How will it help in PCOS patients?
See, now what we say is, now that everybody's caloric requirement changes with their weight, with their age, and the kind of activity if you're doing. Normal caloric requirement in a young adult is around say 12 to 1500 kilocalories per day. Now this has to be, as we've all learned in school, there is a diet pyramid. So as we know, the base is formed by your whatever the grains, wheat, everything that we then comes all your other things, then comes your vegetables, fruits, then comes your additives, dairy products, and then the oil and sugars and everything is at the topmost. So topmost means you should have very very little. But if you are having too much of fats and carbohydrates, which is what we see, there is a lot of junk food. Now, all these apps, Swiggy, Zomato, whatever, they are good. They've made life easier. But if you are going to only eat like takeaways, and if you are going to indulge in only a very high caloric diet, then you will realize that by the time you finish your lunch, you have exceeded 2000 calories. Now, to burn even 100 calories or 200 calories, you have to cycle for almost 1 hour, or you have to walk or run 10,000 steps. How many people do it? No. So, if you are going to have so much of what we call it, you're going to put in so much and not spend it right, then you are going to have what is called an excess. Now, this excess calories, where will they go? They will they will deposit as fat around your body. So that is very difficult to sort of burn out the fat. So very important, measure your calories. There are a lot of calorie charts available nowadays. Google has everything, what you're eating, how much you're eating, how much sugar you're taking. Everything should be counted, and how much you are spending every day. There is no cheat day. You have to exercise every day. Young people need to move. As we say, just do it, move it. No sitting on the couch. Sitting is the new smoking. So that is very important that they understand that. So if I would say how much exercise, you should at least exercise for 45 minutes per day. If you are overweight, then if you lose say around 500 calories per day, if you are going to lose that much, and if you consistently keep on, then you will lose up to 5 kgs or so in over 6 months. So it is very difficult to lose weight. So better is that we call it staple the mouth. So eat appropriately so that you don't have to worry about the repercussions later.
Thank you so much. What is your advice to a mother who has fear of infertility in her daughter due to irregular cycles?
See, definitely it is, if the mother herself has had this problem of PCOS, then there is a high chance that the daughter also has it. So what we need to do is, we have to first of all reassure her. We have to see what is the menstrual pattern of the child. If her cycles are more or less regular, if she is ovulating, then there is no worry as to the chances of infertility as such. But if her cycles are very infrequent and if we feel she is not ovulating, then she will require help later on. So it is better that the cycles are regularized and all these things are taken into account so that we ensure ovulation and later on there is no difficulty in infertility. But for infertility, the workup is very comprehensive. We have to rule out other things also like thyroid, hyperprolactinemias, which also contribute to infertility. So we have to look at the hormonal profile in great detail. But then the infertility workup, we also measure what is called the AMH levels in these girls. If they are like, married or they're planning marriage, and if we have to look into her fertility potential, then that gives us a good insight as to what is her fertility index. So that will be a complete hormonal evaluation along with a clinical evaluation, and treatment will be very different from how we treat the other PCOS. Infertility treatment will be targeted towards ensuring a regular menstrual cycle and ovulation. So in those cases, if we need, then we put them on to certain medications. Now there are many insulin sensitizers which we can use. Metformin is very important in this case. So we can use metformin in these patients. And then ovulation induction, if at all they are planning to conceive, that is after all a different thing altogether.
Okay, so the last question, what is your message to young girls of PCOS and her parents?
See, now there is a lot of take-home messages I can give, but I have written a small poem now. As I was talking, I was just thinking, why don't I leave you with a small poem? I give you these insights. Live a carefree life, eliminate fright, and do not fight. Play with all your might, rise early and shine bright. Keep your goals in sight. Do not give in to plight. Eat right, sit upright, and sleep tight. So this is what I would say. This sort of all encompasses what you should do. And I am a strong proponent of lifestyle modification. I also believe that stress is something which we are seeing on a
Yes.
very large scale. So I myself propagate a lot of yoga and meditation. And I do not think that, young children, it's too early. A lot of people say, but these are young children. Why do you have to teach them yoga? No, these are young children and you cannot say that this is not the right time. You should teach, and I have seen all the schools also have this in their curriculum. So physical exercises, they do have this. So please make it a habit. If you are getting up late, if you have an afternoon school, and if you are getting out college, and if you are getting up at 11, then definitely you are, wasting that important time when you can be exposed to sunlight, exercise, and do a lot of cleansing. Because all these things also lead to dermatological problems. And then we see them going to the dermatologist or going to cosmetic centers. It is not like it's a quick fix or that one size fits all. Everybody wants to look good, but then you have to remember that you have to work for it. It cannot happen just by, putting a face mask.
So we have few questions from the audience.
Yes.
The first question is by Shilpa. She's asking, can we cure PCOD?
See, one thing you have to remember, PCOS is something which it's a syndrome. It is for life. There is nothing like a cure because we do not know the exact etiology. It is the basis is insulin resistance. So it is not that it is going to go away. It is how you control it. PCOS is something which you need to address and control. It is not going to go away. There are remissions and exacerbations. So if everything is going right, if your cycles are right and there is no other problem, that means you don't have to worry about it. If your cycles are irregular, or if you have, a weight problem, or if you're going in for diabetes, then you have to address it. So there is nothing like a cure. It is just how you keep it in control. That's all.
Okay, and Goldie wants to know what is the diet and tips to cure PCOS?
Yes, like I
Any
said,
diet?
yes, like I said, now there are so many diets. If you just Google it on the net, there will be a PCOS diet, there is this diet, that diet. So there is nothing like a diet. But what we say is restrict your caloric intake. The bottom line is you restrict your calories, you have to balance it. See, now your fats have to be very, very less. Your carbohydrates also have to be in moderation, and your proteins have to be more, because at this age we are addressing young girls nowadays and this particular talk. So girls need to have a good muscle mass. So if you exercise and if you eat more of proteins, then you are building your muscle mass, you're building your calcium bank. So that is very important. So what I would say, a right diet is having a very good breakfast, like they say, breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. So this works very well for PCOS. In between, I would also say do not keep a long gap. Some people, they eat only say once a day or twice a day, saying that we'll not. But don't keep a long gap. Have plenty and plenty of fluids. Fluids in the sense, no beverages, no junk food, and all these aerated drinks. But you should drink a lot of water. You can have coconut water. I would not say juices, because by and large we advocate that you eat fruits rather than have juices, because fruits, they also give you a lot of fiber, and that helps in, good ensuring that your bowels move properly. So a good diet is one which has at least two kinds of fruits. You can have melons also. You can incorporate citrus fruits, guavas, pears, anything you like. Papayas are extremely good. So there is no contraindication to which fruit you can have. Even bananas, I would say you should have. Don't worry that they will put on weight. You can have a small amount. Eat everything, but you should have a small plate. Ideally, a PCOS plate is what we say, a 6-inch plate. So in our customs, if you see, the ancient customs say eat palm size, whatever fits in your palm, but that's too less. But at least have a small plate, so that will reduce your portions. So smaller portions is the key. Less carbohydrates, very less fats, and avoid junk food. Have lots of vegetables, fruits. If you're non-vegetarian, then you can have fish, you can have chicken, you can have lean meats. Eggs are good. Egg white is very good. If you're having chapatis, then we say whole wheat. We say grains. Increase your grains. Increase your calcium intake, natsni, and you can have soya also, and milk as per your requirement. That is very good. So have everything in balanced proportions.
Okay. So Apu wants to know, I am not overweight. I am not getting my periods regularly. I was on hormonal therapy since a long time, but as soon as I stop, my periods also stop. So what do we advise her?
Yes, so this is a known thing. Now, if you're not overweight, we should actually see whether you are lean or you are just right. So there can be something wrong. Maybe your metabolism is not very good. So maybe you need to step up on your exercising. That is what we need to see. So which is the factor? What is your trigger factor needs to be identified. So in your case, what will happen is we do give cycle regulations. We do give combined oral contraceptive pills, low dose, to young girls to regulate their cycles. If we feel the cycles are extremely irregular, like I said, if there is a more than 90-day interval, then we do give these medications to regularize your cycles. But otherwise, if you are doing everything normally, if there is no other major factor which is causing this, we have to rule out the factors and then we can see. So you should have a detailed evaluation by a gynecologist and get this issue addressed.
Okay. Next question is by Mathurima. She wants to know, does PCOS start early in life or it can begin even after pregnancy and having a child?
See, like I said, PCOS may be there, it could be there underlying. It is just that maybe it is like sort of now it is evident. That is all. Sometimes it comes into, you diagnose it at that particular time. Because, like I said, we do not do a sonography, we do not advocate till 8 years after you reach menarche. Many times girls might get married by 2021. And that is the first time when they undergo a sonography and then see, oh, I have PCOS. So maybe it is identified at that time. So maybe it is there and it is not known. That's all.
Okay. So Pratibha wants to know, in how many days after taking a good diet we'll see the results?
See, generally we say that the results start showing by if you lose even 5 to 6 kgs of your weight. Then we have seen a regularization of menstrual cycles. 6 months, definitely we see a lot of difference. So you have to be consistent and at least give yourself 6 months. It is a very common thing we have noticed. People say, till I was going to the gym, I was good. Till I was doing this, I was good. But you have to remember that you have to do this daily. You eat daily, you sleep daily. So please exercise and eat right daily. There is no cheat day.
Okay.
That is the important thing. Consistency is important. It is very difficult. I'm not saying you have to be like a saint and eat only home food and eat only this. See, you should learn to balance. Once in a while, everybody eats outside. Once in a while, people do indulge in a lot of other things also. But that's fine as long as you're balancing it and it is not affecting your daily life. It is not affecting your functioning. Then it is fine. The same thing goes for cosmetic concerns. Like I said, hirsutism, dermatological concerns, if you keep yourself clean and healthy and you take care of your skin, by and large, you will see that all these things do not require so much of intervention. But if they need, then definitely you should go and get it done. We always say that address the issues rather than, worrying about them and letting them go out of proportion to the extent that it affects you.
Okay, so we have a research scientist here, Mrs. Palak. She wants to know, my research is on comparison of nutritional status between PCOS and healthy. What factors can she include?
See, PCOS, like I said, you have to include definitely something which, lowers the insulin levels. So you have to identify foods which can lower your insulin levels. Like I said, all these things like you should have whole grains and a lot of leafy vegetables and all these kinds of fruits and legumes, whatever we say. And even proteins. So just go into that kind of diet which includes all these factors and reduce all the other things like potatoes, which we say avoid potatoes, and all sugar, oil, butter, all the very dairy products, very high caloric containing products. So you should avoid that. But the other kinds of foods you can include, even dry fruits, nuts and all. If you have a handful of dry fruits, they're very good. So we always say in the evenings or something, you should have a small snack of dry fruits. In the morning, see sprouts, very healthy with fruits you can have. And if you are having even sandwiches, I say you have something like a vegetable sandwich, or if you are having chicken, so whatever you are having. But see that it is balanced. It is not just, potatoes and something like that. Vegetables also, beans, very good. Incorporate them in your diet. Like they say, eat your beans and eat your greens. That is important, yeah.
So one of the audience wants to know, is apple cider vinegar helpful in PCOS?
See, apple cider vinegar, to a very small extent, yes, it can help. But I have seen girls having one tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. So, and we have seen girls landing up with gastrointestinal problems with that. See, you should remember vinegar is not very easy to digest. A small additives in food is what we recommend. But if you are having so much of vinegar, then it destroys your gastrointestinal lining. If you are having too much of it, You've seen how vinegar, if you pour it on some surface and you see after some time how, you know, that surface becomes absolutely clean. It has a lot of acidic reaction. So you have to be careful in the amount you use, and don't use it all the time in everything. A little bit is okay. Like the way they use it in preservatives and sauces and other things, or even while cooking, you can use a little bit, no problems.
Okay, so we have two similar questions from Tripti and Sakshi. They want to know, can they have milk and dairy products, like a glass of milk every day in PCOS, or if they have irregular periods, will it help?
See, in our country, there is so much of emphasis on milk. I mean, I don't think any household is such where the children are told they don't have. Everybody, mother is like after the child, till the child finishes the milk, the mother will keep running after the child. Like I said, unless the child has lactose intolerance, or if the if grossly obese or overweight, and we say okay, restrict the dairies. When we need to restrict dairies, whole milk contains a lot of fat. So in these cases, we say okay, you go on to skimmed milk or alternate kinds of milk. But by and large, the mainstay of the Indian diet, the calcium intake, is milk. So if you do not have any of these problems, then there is definitely no harm in having milk. You should have milk. It is good for your teeth, for your bones, for your calcium, and for your health. So I am a strong proponent of milk, unless and until it is not for you. You have to identify if there is a problem, or if it is something that you have to cut down on the kind of milk you're having, then yes.
Okay, so can we replace milk with curd, or we should have only milk, or having curd is better?
You can. Curd is very good. There is absolutely no harm. You can, if you're not agreeable to milk, uh, very young children, I would say, less than 5 years or something, I would say definitely at least have a glass of milk. You can have curd also, because the requirement of calcium is very high. Just a glass of milk hardly has that kind of calcium which is required. So you need to have everything: milk, curd, buttermilk, everything in your diet. But if you're older and if you just cannot have milk, or it doesn't agree with you, people don't, not liking milk is not an excuse not to have milk. But if it is not agreeing with you, then definitely curd is fine. Curd is absolutely fine. There is so many nowadays. We have yogurts. Yogurts also are very good, and they have a lot of vitamins, minerals. We have assorted yogurts. You can make your own kind of yogurt, and also in the market we have so many yogurts. But then see to it that too many sweets, that it should not have a very high caloric content.
Okay, so we get a lot of flavored yogurts in the market. Are those okay?
Yes,
Blueberry and
they
the
are fine.
mango flavor.
See, that is what. Just count your calories. What if you're okay with the caloric content? See, suppose you are having
Okay.
a yogurt which is having 200 calories, or say 400 calories, very thick, very creamy yogurt. If you are having that kind of yogurt, then you see throughout the day how many calories you've taken. Suppose you've taken say 300 or 400 calories in your breakfast, then you know that you should not exceed 5 to 600 calories for your lunch, because then you need to cut down. The total should ideally not go beyond 1400. So you should see to it. That is if you are perfectly healthy, and if you're like, not having a weight issue. If you're having an issue, then you have to cut down your calories even more. Then I would say that something like 1,000 or 1,200 calories is more than enough. So then in that case, what I would say, it's not that don't have it, have less, have very little.
Okay. And there's some probiotics preparations also available. So are those good
Yes,
for
probiotics are
patients?
good because
Patients?
probiotics help your gut lining, they help in digestion, and there is no harm in having probiotics. Curd itself is a very, very good probiotic.
Very good probiotic.
Curd is very good for your digestion, and probiotics have, they are the fermenting action and all. So it is good, but nothing in excess. I mean, don't just self-prescribe and have too many probiotics. Because I've seen people having these young children and all, and they sometimes land up with diarrheas. So you should not have something, just over the counter, just have it. Somebody's written PCOS, women get pregnant.
Yeah, get right.
Yes, they do. Yes,
Yes.
otherwise you would have too much infertility. They do, but sometimes they do need help in getting pregnant, especially if they're not ovulating. So that is the main thing. If they're not ovulating, we help them to ovulate and they do get pregnant, yes.
Okay. But can we advise, early marriage, because nowadays girls are getting married late and then they are like they're very career oriented.
Now
So
that's a topic for a national debate, the age of
yeah,
marriage.
it
So,
is. So I just thought I'll ask.
definitely, this is not the platform to have a debate
Okay.
on this issue, but definitely, what we can say is marriage is entirely your choice to marry, not to marry. What age to marry is an individual choice. When it comes to health, there is all we can say as practicing doctors. There is a biological clock, as we all know. The ovaries start aging after the age of 30. After there is a predetermined number of follicles which you have, predetermined number of eggs which you are going to release throughout your lifetime. So as the ovaries start aging, then you are not going to produce the eggs and you may not be able to conceive if you're older. So that is all you need to know. If you need to reproduce and reproduce in time, then you have to take into account a biological clock. Otherwise, marriage is an individual choice.
Okay.
But we always say, as gynecologists, it's very
Yeah.
healthy. It is good to have your first child before you're 30. Because after that, there is a lot of change in the quality of the embryo. And as you age, then there is a propensity to land up with abnormalities. So we have to say that please try and conceive by 30. If you are having an early marriage, nothing like it.
So Priyanka wants to know which exercise you suggest for PCOD women.
The exercises, now there are so many of them. There are cardio, you can do aerobics, you can do swimming, cycling, anything. Because you are young, there is no contraindication. But if you are very overweight or if you're obese and you suddenly start on a very grueling exercise schedule, then that is not good for you. And there is nothing like a very rapid weight loss. You shouldn't lose, like they say, 10 days, 10 kgs. All these, please stay away from fad diets, fad exercises. These are very, very detrimental to your bones and to your muscles. So be careful whatever exercise you start. See, nobody really falls off if you start walking. So start with small, low intensity exercises. If you're not used to it, start with at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Then go on to high intensity. Whatever your body is okay with, just do that. Whatever you feel happy. I would say dancing. Girls, start dancing. It's very good, very healthy.
Okay. So one last question, which is a good time to exercise?
See, exercise, the metabolism is always at its peak in the morning. Towards the end of the day, you start getting tired. Your muscles have a lot of fatigue. There is a lot of buildup of lactic acid. So if you ask me, the best time to exercise is always in the morning. But if you do not have time, then there is nothing like it. You can exercise in the evenings, but do not exercise after eating. You should not have a heavy meal and exercise. Always exercise just before you eat. Because
Okay, sure.
it has a lot of side effects if you exercise on a full meal.
Okay.
Yes.
So Priyanka wants to know, is flax seeds useful in PCOD?
Good. See, flax seeds are good. All these omega-3 fatty acids, flax seeds are definitely good, but everything in moderation. You should roast the flax seeds and then have them if you are having them just like that, or you can use them in your food or a cooking. All these things, they are antioxidants. See, antioxidants reduce the oxidative stress, which is also a contributor to inflammation, which causes PCOS. All these things help in countering these problems which cause PCOS. So definitely go on, have flax seeds.
Okay, we have Apu here. She wants to know, is it okay to have periods in the form of clots and no bleeding, only clots?
See, it's like now clots. What are clots? The menstrual blood which accumulates, basically after a certain time, it forms a clot. So it's the blood which is definitely coming out and then forming a clot. So if you are only having clots, then you definitely need to see a gynecologist. What is the reason and how many days? It's just one day or just one clot, or if it is more, then we need to see the pattern. It's very difficult to say. There's nothing like an okay. You should have a good amount of bleeding. They say up to 80 ml is what you bleed throughout your menses. That is the normal.
Okay.
Full menstruation
So,
is up to 80 ml of bleeding. So if the clot amounts to 80 ml, then yes, maybe. But if it is just a 10 ml clot, then
okay, so I think we should end the session. Our time is up. Though we have one more question on rice.
you
We
can
can't
eat
take-
rice, but eat less. Don't eat too much of polished rice, brown rice, red rice. Everything is fine, but have less. There's nothing like I don't say don't eat this or don't eat that. Eat less.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you
so much.
and enjoy. PCOS is nothing to worry about, but just control it. Don't let it control you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
We have to press end. Record.